Reading. What is reading? Reading is a meditation. Reading is a discipline. Reading for me has helped me with my integrity. The alignment of my thoughts, my words, my actions. The discipline of reading is time between myself, for me, and myself, my future self, my higher self. The new ideas, the new thoughts, the new epiphanies, the unlearning that has to take place so that I can be a better version of myself, not only for myself, but for others, which makes me a better version of myself. The actual act of sitting down, disciplining myself to not just read what's on the page, but have a conversation with the author, to have a conversation with someone that may not even be with us in the world right now. My mind is teleporting to another era. It's teleporting to a new context. And I mean, who am I outside of an accumulation of the books that I've experienced, the people that I've met, the things that I've experienced? Who are we but an accumulation of the books that we've read, the people we've experienced, the things that we've experienced? Like, reading is challenging. Reading is uplifting. Reading, depending on what we're reading, that makes us who we are. The great literature helps us develop empathy for others, put ourselves in others' scenarios, others' points of view, others' interpretation of the world, of reality. Reading great literature can help us mature into better versions of ourselves and catch up to humanity as humanity has unlearned so much aggression and contempt for itself, and learned and transmuted new core values to live in a more compassionate, empathetic, virtuous world, in comparison to the past, of maybe a more barbarous us versus them, bigger weapons, different weapons, in a Hobbesian sense, or in the great life is nasty, Brutus, and short. In the absence of literature, maybe it really is that. I mean, what impact did the printing press have on society when every individual, or more individuals than before that technological advancement, had access to information? They had access to maybe the same information of those that were in higher positions of authority, that in turn, as a consequence of their higher positions of authority, were seen to be the arbiters of truth. We're seen to be those closest to God. We're seen to be those that got to dictate everyone's value. What impact did literature's spread, or the ability to read, have on the human species when it came to dismantling the caste systems, or the inherent disadvantage that people have had from different walks, different bloodlines, different birthplaces, the inherent disadvantages that people have with less, or who are perceived to have or be less? What advantage did the access of information through books, as a consequence of the printing press, have on how ideas of what it meant and what it means to be human? How have those ideas of what it means to be human been impacted by the ability of individuals, everyday people, no matter where they came from, no matter what their background, no matter what they looked like, or how they were perceived by the crowd or others or those in authority? What impact did that opportunity to have information have on all of those biases, all of those half-witted impressions, all of those maybe necessary biases to survive and to compete and to figure out who was going to get the resources that were available at whatever given time throughout history? But the opportunity to have a book, or to have, it's less the book, but access to information that could level the playing field between those in positions of absolute authority and absolute power over others, more information that could give them an edge in competition to compete for resources in economic sense. What opportunity for each individual to be able to compete with authority, to be able to compete with power, having more information in one's hands to make a stronger argument for their own value as an individual in the face of authority, their own using reason as a pathway out of scarcity, as a pathway out of cultural biases, as a pathway out of a lack of resources, a lack of name, a lack of pedigree, a lack of title, a lack of land. All of the lack that can be a natural consequence of being thrust into the world without title, without land, without resources, without wealth, without the information. What can a book, or the book, the idea, right, the medium of a book do to empower an individual that has a lack of so much, a lack of reputation, a lack of market share or brand, a lack of resources, a lack of relationships and a network, but now they have the information that someone with more authority, with a deeper and broader network, with a greater reputation, they can be at the same level playing field from an information standpoint. But they're at the bottom of the world's hierarchy with that information. What impact can a book do on an individual? It can level the playing field of authority, of influence, of power, and give any individual the capacity to sit down and reflect, to go through that meditative process of reading to think. Maybe be inspired by one's own thought to write what they think from the accumulation or the distillation or the exercising, the synthesis of going through books, going through information, going through these tomes of wisdom, that an individual can put themselves in a position to be in an equal playing field through reason, through reflection, channeling their innate gifts, whatever they may be, those invisible, untapped potentials that can't be seen at the surface, that can't be seen aesthetically, but they're inside, whatever that means. They're somewhere between the physiology that goes before opening the book and putting one's eyes on the page and looking at the letters, and the mind, which still cannot be seen or fully comprehended or understood. There's some interplay between the physiology and the will, the individual desire to understand, to consume and synthesize information in order to create more opportunity for the individual, to create more opportunity for their family, their community, their pedigree, their background, their culture. Books are pathways or gateways to understand, to be informed, to alter the formation of one's thoughts, words, actions, and in turn, one's communities, one's groups, one's ability to distill that next philosophy that's going to alter how society shows up for itself, to itself. How does actual society move forward? It moves forward in some type of interaction between what is known and thought to be understood up to that given moment in time, and what can be known or can be thought to be understood. It's an interplay, it's an interaction on an individual level. That's on like a macro scale. On an individual level, when I grab a book and I'm sitting there reading, there are things happening to me, through me, that I can't even fully comprehend, that are altering who I am or who I can be when I show up to do everything, to do anything. And the books have the power to change how we show up to our lives. And there is, I think, a difference between physically reading and listening to books. I think there are differences. I think they complement one another. I don't know if I haven't experienced the case studies or the literature on what are the consequences, or what will our human society be like 50 years from now as a consequence of more audible or audio learning taking place in our culture. I don't know that, but I can speak anecdotally that, yes, it seemed like there was an advantage when I had the opportunity to listen to audible or audio books every waking moment that I was not conversing with another human being, where maybe I was not immobile, I was in movement, I was moving towards an aim, another desired goal, and I couldn't just walk and read a book at the same time, or drive a car and read a book at the same time, but I could listen to the book. I could listen to a conversation of another, by, with, and through themselves, as they were thinking through whatever topic at hand, right? Going through the process of writing, of separating the wheat from the chaff, I'm sure the writer's overwhelming imagination and creativity, and their distillation of truth, their exercising what is true from what is not. That's what the process of writing does. So the writer is filtering. The writer is almost like if there's a filter. You have everything at the top, all the way at the bottom, or an hourglass, how, it's shaped in a way where only a couple grains get through. Those couple grains that are getting through, that's the refining process of the writer. So the writer is giving me their information. They're giving me their energy. They're giving me the best of their energy, of course, relative to the quality of the book, right? The difference between a classic and whatever general commentary of thought that won't stand the test of time. But the writer has done so much heavy lifting. I'm borrowing all their life. I'm borrowing all of the quality of their life. I'm borrowing their experience and getting some type of exponential return relative to how I show up and relate to that text. So the writer and the reader, they have this interactive relationship. And even the reader, if I'm reading, how am I reading it? Am I reading it to just accept every nuance, every information that's shared with me, or am I practicing the meditation of thinking critically, of questioning, of bringing to mind all of the arguments that I have? All of this could be happening naturally without even attempting to do this. The more one reads, and the more consistent the reading is taking place on a daily basis. So there's one thing is the core values that it develops, or the discipline. This goes back to the personal integrity of the reader, to set aside time and actually focus on the task at hand when there's so many things that could pull one away from developing a deeper understanding of themselves from the meditation of reading. We live in a world where the technologies are urging us away from the discovery of ourself, in a sense, in this voyeuristic culture of, watching this video, or, watching content is a form of gathering, of getting information and contemplating around it. But reading a book, that it seems to be more personal. It seems to be something, it's between myself and I when I'm going through that, what's written down, what's been exercised and distilled. This is one form of bringing in, of gathering information and thinking through things, but it's not going to replace the written form. It's not going to replace the act and the meditation of reading. It may complement it. Audio may complement it, but it's not going to get rid of. So I think, when I think of reading, I think of thinking. I think of the pathway to writing. The more one reads, it's now taking in all this distilled, filtered information from those that have likely thought about a subject matter at a deeper and more intense, and spent more time on that subject matter. Gathering all that information, gathering that distilled information, now puts oneself in a position to now become the writer, to further think through writing the thoughts of the books that one's accumulated and gone through and actually read through and thought through on whatever given subject matter. And regardless of one's focus, let's say, the doctor of X or lawyer of Y, each book, each experience with information is another puzzle piece that fits together to develop the tapestry of who we are and who we become. Books and our experience of books are a part of us exploring the tapestry of who we can become. Books have changed and impacted my life because that's always been a place that I could go to when I was uncertain, unsure, afraid, scared, and desired courage, power, the ability to confront the chaos of the world and the chaos within myself. I always felt more confident and to face what I was scared of when I got information. When I was armed with information, I felt unstoppable. I felt the ability to combat or face the dragon to get the treasure. Books have been an outlet and an advantage for me to be able to develop the skills, to be confronted with the concepts, to move towards mastery, to then I'm armed with the concepts and the frameworks and the ideas and the epiphanies and the excitement to move into working on the skills, which is then taking content, putting in the hours, sacrificing, putting in the hours to get the experience. And it's been experience from having the content, putting in the hours to get the experience times time over many years, times however many years, that has led to mastery in some contexts and is reflected in being a green pea in many other contexts. So reading has armed me. Listening to audiobooks has armed me. Studying has armed me to move into action, to work on the skills that have led to the experience, which over time has accumulated into wisdom in the given responsibilities that others rely on me for.